In the history of the country, there's less than 12,000 people who have ever served in the United States House of Representatives. I get attacked constantly, every day, all day, from all sides because of the way that I choose to legislate. And on the Democratic side, that he's not a real moderate, he's not really bipartisan, he's MAGA.
None of your business, Ushy. None of your business, Michael.
It's the None of Your Business podcast, hosted by Michael and Ushy.
Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing episode of the None of Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Michael Greenfield. Joined with me is our co-host, Ushy Schwartz. We are sponsored by Twillery and produced by the Prime Source production team. And today is a very, very special day because we are here with none other than the 17th District Leader, Congressman Mike Lawler. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I always said to my friends, 17 is my favorite number in roulette, and I never really knew what the difference is between different districts, 17, 18. But when I learned what it was, I was like, wow, I'm living in a lucky town, and we're lucky to have you as one of our leaders of this beautiful, beautiful town as Rockland County, and I know that you're responsible for so many districts within the area. It's more than Rockland, right?
Yeah, I have Rockland, Northern Westchester, Putnam County, and 3 towns in Dutchess County. So it's about 780,000 residents.
Wow.
Well, that's a lot.
And I've seen you at many, many different events. And every time I see you, I'm like, how? How do you show up from one event to the next? I literally, like, it almost doesn't make sense to me that you travel so much to so much. How do you keep up?
During, well, it's definitely not easy, but during my last term, we did over 1,200 in-person events. So it was, it's a lot of shuffling around and trying to, hit every community and engage with folks all across the district.
Well, I have to say thank you. So on behalf of our entire community for always literally showing up.
Thank you.
And we have
Not just showing up, Michael, but showing up big. I think there's a big difference between showing up and showing up the right way, and he's been doing it for a long time. Our reps can learn from him, by the way. 1,200 events. I think our reps need to do 1,400 events. Like, they got to get out there and start networking. I mean, they got to make some more sales.
Yeah,
Never
exactly.
enough.
Yeah, so it's part of it, just getting to know the community and building the relationships, which is amazing. We have a little thing here we like to call ChatGPT Said What, which is a way to our audience to get to know you. I think most of the people already know you.
Right.
But have you ever done this to yourself?
I somebody actually did it to me a few weeks ago, and I laughed at the the bio they popped out. But let's hear it.
Well, you know what? I'm kind of impressed just reading it. So first, it starts with represents Rockland and actually lives like a local, not a visit on weekends politician.
That's great.
That is pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Which would mean, I guess a lot of politicians just run around back and forth, but
A lot of my colleagues live in D.C. and they go back to their districts, but I go back every weekend, every time that we're at a session, I'm there. So it's we're usually in session Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. So.
Well, speaking of turning down a run for governor, doubling down on serving your district instead of chasing headlines. Whoa.
Very disappointed, as were lots of people, you should know. And we thought now's the time. We felt like we need it now more than ever. And when you basically announced and told everybody that you're not doing it, you're going for re-election to, for Congress again, one part of me was like, oh, it's great. We need somebody like you in Congress. That's wonderful. But we probably need a little bit of change in governing in New York. So that was a disappointment.
Well, there's no question we need more change in New York and our neighboring state of New Jersey. But, look, at this moment, it wasn't the right thing for me and my family. And I very much love what I'm doing. I love serving in Congress. I love representing my district. I love dealing with the issues that we work on, especially foreign affairs and serving as chair of the Middle East and North Africa subcommittee. So it's a lot of work to deal with down in Washington, and I'm excited to continue it.
What is the Foreign Affairs Committee? I know that you chair that, right?
I chair the subcommittee on the Middle East and North Africa.
And I've watched a couple of the lines of questions that you had. What exactly do they do?
The focus is primarily on the relationships between the U.S. and other foreign governments. We pass legislation in relation to that, whether it's sanctions bills or foreign assistance. We have oversight of foreign assistance. We have oversight of the State Department. So Secretary Rubio and all the undersecretaries come before our committee and testify, and we work closely with them on a number of items pertaining, generally speaking, to foreign affairs and how it's conducted.
Love it. It's so fascinating to me. And I watch, like, people like watch soap operas or reality TV. I like to watch, like, when the House is in session and they're bringing on witnesses, and they're asking them questions. To me, it's fascinating. I love it. And sometimes you see the way these questions are being posed and the answers are being given, and you're like, what? Did they just say that? Like, are they listening to themselves? Like, something is not adding up over here. And I always wonder, like, what comes of this? Like, this can't be real. Like, this can't really be happening. And sometimes, like, it's a circus. It's like a clown show. And, me as the casual citizen just listening to this, and, like, this can't really be going on. And, like, I feel like I want more to happen. Like, right there, somebody should get punished, like, on the spot. They should be fired or something. Like if we were an employer and, like, we were having, our employees being interviewed, and we asked those, like, hard-pressed questions, and there just wasn't a justifiable answer, and it makes them look even worse. Like, all right, you got 30 days notice, you're out. That's it. But it just seems like it just keeps going on and on. Like, how do we get more action to actually happen and more accountability like the private sector has? How do we get that more in our government as well?
A lot of these hearings obviously are designed to hold accountability and hold those in power accountable, or expose information about a specific issue. The last year we did a lot of work extensively on the Biden administration's failures when it came to the fall of Kabul and the bombing at Abbey Gate and the death of 13 U.S. service members, and trying to hold the administration accountable for that. So it just depends on the issue, but we produced a pretty extensive report on what happened and why, and what the communications were within the administration, et cetera. So, we try to bring things to light, both from an oversight and accountability standpoint, but also in terms of, our allies and our adversaries, and what is actually happening around the globe.
Yeah. And it's great. It brings awareness. Yep. It keeps the public engaged. I feel like, we're somewhat more than just spectators. Like, we're involved, and they know that it's being viewed by millions of people.
Yep.
So, like, it means something.
No, and some of these hearings really do get good exposure. And,
and you get outcomes from
engaged in it. And you do.
Yeah.
Whether it's legislative or action taken by the administration.
I'll go off script for a second and just ask, when is the moment you realize you're doing this? Like, could you just take me back to that day, or where were you, and what was that like? What was your life like then? Like, so much of what you're doing, like, you're watching it and you're, like, asking yourself questions and, like, poking fun at it perhaps at times, looking at it as, and I'm wondering, like, what made you get into this? Who are you? I got to put this away and listen a little bit.
I agree. And Michael, by the way, at a very young age, our Congressman Mike Lawler here is not a 50, 60-year-old man. I mean, you're very young, if I remember correctly.
I just turned 39.
There you go. He's under 40.
Unlike Jack Benny, I'm actually 39.
Did it just happen? Like, you're
like
a September baby?
Ago,
oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
9th. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, Virgo.
But no, look, it's I got started in this as an intern for John McCain back in 2008 on his presidential race. That's how I got kind of hooked on politics and government, and went on to work for the state Republican Party and Ed Cox, who served as chair. I became executive director of the state Republican Party in New York, and then went on to start my own consulting firm. I ran Rob Astorino's campaign for governor back in 2014, worked in local government, became a lobbyist, et cetera, and then went on to run for state assembly in New York in the 97th district in 2020 during COVID.
Was that your first official public office?
That was the first official office that I ran for. I was appointed to deputy town supervisor in the town of Orangetown, where I live. But the assembly race, I was the only Republican pickup in the whole state. We flipped a 2-to-1 Democratic district, defeated a 14-year incumbent, and then, ultimately ran for Congress in 22 when the maps were thrown out and you got a fair congressional map drawn by a court-appointed special master, and decided to take the risk and defeated the chair of the DCCC, the first time that's happened in over 40 years, and it was a big win. But I'd say the moment I was like, oh, all right, we're doing this, was really on day one. January 3rd, when we had to go through 15 rounds trying to elect Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House.
I remember that.
I was right in the middle of it, throwing haymakers and right in the middle of the fray, supporting Kevin, and really just it's been nonstop ever since.
That was chaos on the floor. I mean, people.
It was the first time in
if I remember
over
correctly.
almost. It was the first time in over 100 years that there was a contested speaker's race, and it really, obviously, with TV and social media, it was made for TV drama.
And Matt Gaetz was in the middle of like the thick of things.
He was the ringleader.
He was the ringleader, and look where he is now.
Yep.
Nowhere to be found.
No longer in Congress.
No longer in Congress. I used to be a huge fan of Matt Gaetz. I thought he was very well spoken. I thought, especially by the impeachment hearings, he was a staunch supporter, a defender for Donald Trump. And that whole thing obviously was just a witch hunt and a scam and a waste of our taxpayer dollars. But he was right there, and he made a lot of eloquent points. And he really did a great job up there. And I thought he had a really nice future in the Republican Party. And then it just went off I don't know what happened to him. Now he's also very like anti-Israel and all of that, and him and Marjorie Greene Taylor and a bunch of this. What you think you know somebody and you're following them, and I was a fan, and he had lots of people, and now just like he went off the rails.
Yeah. As my dad used to tell me, use your talents and skills for good. And I think Matt is exceptionally talented. He's very smart. He's very articulate.
Sure.
But I think oftentimes would not use his skills and talents for good, and was, somewhat destructive within the conference, and, really impeded the ability to get a lot of different things done.
Yeah. You know who I was upset that we lost? I think a lot of us are. Tucker Carlson. What a shame. That guy was gold for so many years. He was always on the right side of all the issues. But again, another person who was very well spoken, had a big fan base, a big follow, big platform, and again, just fell off the rails. It's just unbelievable.
Well, there's certainly within an element of the far right, there's this isolationist strain that is coming through, and some of the points they make, I agree with. And obviously, when you look at how we spend money domestically, the things we focus on domestically, we have a lot of challenges that require our attention and really require an execution on the policies. But that doesn't mean that you retreat from our role in the world or really abandon our allies. And I think when you look at the focus should be on getting our allies to do more. It shouldn't only be on the backs of Americans. I agree with that. Yeah. And I think the president certainly has pushed for our NATO allies to do more.
No one did a better job than him.
Allies in the Middle East to do more. And that's right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you completely absolve yourself of a leadership role. And I think that's where there's been a challenge within, a small element of the party. I think most of my colleagues still believe very strongly in America's role in the world.
Yeah, I think it's bipartisan for the most part. It is. I think that 70% of Congress, stands behind Israel for the most part. At the end of the day, Michael, if something, God forbid, happens in the world and America needs help, who's the number one person America can count on? I mean, that alone is worth its weight in gold. To support Israel in the time of need is knowing that they'll reciprocate when it should never come. But if the time does come, they will be their first front lines. And I think that is what a lot of these people are missing. Why are we, foreign aid and we can use the money at home? America first. Isn't that the movement?
Again, some of the points that are raised are not wrong. You look at foreign aid. Some of the abuses of our foreign aid were egregious. Yeah. And the misappropriation of funds and, frankly, the lack of oversight of USAID, and they were operating in a silo, separate and apart from the State Department, doing things that, frankly, undermined America's interests and, frankly, undermined our allies in terms of some of the things that they do or don't want within their country. And so part of this is reforming the system, reforming the process. Those points are valid, and it's a legitimate discussion. Right. But the idea that you're going to cut off all foreign aid is idiotic.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, it's recognizing the need for reform, but recognizing the need for strong American leadership.
Yeah.
I'm curious, we're talking about people that change their minds about certain things, like
hot and cold.
Exactly. Has there ever been a situation that you've spoken to a constituent or even an opponent and suddenly you said, you know what? Wow, good point.
Well, I think generally speaking, if you do this right, you engage in constructive dialogue. You're going to listen to what somebody else has to say. You may not entirely change your point of view, but you certainly will become way more articulate on the subject matter, or way more articulate in making your case by learning from somebody else's perspective or experience. And I think too often in politics, everybody has this view of, I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing really else to discuss, rather than actually saying, okay, well, look, yeah, this is my perspective, this is your perspective. Number one, where do we agree? Where is there commonality? And number two, what can I learn from what you're saying? Maybe I didn't know something. Maybe I didn't experience that. I mean, so much of our perspectives are shaped by our own life experiences. And so that to me is something that, I just think it's important to engage in constructive dialogue. There's plenty of issues where, as I go through, whether it's on the committees that I serve on, financial services and foreign affairs, or whether it's, a general issue where, somebody walks me through their perspective or viewpoint on something, and I say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And none of us are experts in everything. You can't possibly be. Yeah. And so the question is, how do you are you willing to engage for the purpose of legislating and providing solutions, or do you just want to be right? And I think there's a big difference between the two.
Well, you're showing up to a lot of events, so people must be bombarding you with ideas and challenges.
Yeah. And by the way, that's one of the great things about legislating. You'll have constituents come up to you about issues that are not on your radar, or things that you're not experiencing day to day because you don't work in that industry, and they come to you with a problem or an example or an idea.
Can you think of an example or an idea that someone came to you or someone said something and you're like, oh, interesting. That's
Oh, sure. I mean, listen, I deal with that all the time on foreign affairs, because somebody is from a country. Right now we're dealing with a case in point, Haiti, and some of the challenges there, and folks coming to us about economic support through Hope Helps. It's expiring, and we're trying to extend it, and so there's issues all the time where you get involved or you focus on because people come up to you and engage, and you so much of the Middle East legislation. There's people who do a lot of work in the Middle East who have a lot of experience, and they're come and explain a challenge or a situation that they're dealing with. And you have to be very willing from a legislative standpoint. My view is we're there to be legislatively active. We're there to come up with legislation. Now, not just to pass legislation for legislation's sake, but to actually solve a problem. And so the question is, do you proactively try to find ways to legislate or not? I'm a very aggressive legislator. I passed 11 bills, 6 of which were signed into law by President Biden during my first term. Wow. SALT obviously was a big issue in the tax bill, and I was proud to get that done. That was a big priority for me. I fought like heck, along with some of my New York and New Jersey colleagues, and we got it done. But you have to be willing to exert your leverage and understand how to actually legislate, but how to negotiate to yes. If you want to pass legislation, you can't just be no, 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 no. There's going to be compromises along the way, and you got to be willing to make them.
For all those married people listening, could you tell us how to do that?
No, I always say that line. Like, anybody who's ever been married knows you're not going to get everything you want, and that's just the reality. And if you do think that, you're not going to be married very long. I mean, that's just, so legislating is no different in reality.
I like that line, how to negotiate to a yes, which is, under what circumstance will we say yes? And can you tell me a little bit about that SALT thing you mentioned? Because it said it here in ChatGPT, and I was wondering a little bit about it. But
what does it say on there?
You're very salty.
Salty is a new term that the kids are using these days.
Is it?
I found out from my 8-year-old one day oh, Daddy, you're so salty. And I'm like, wow, what did you say?
I guess that's where it's
That's
coming
when I knew
from.
I'm getting older, when I ready to, there's lingo that I don't know about anymore. And he explained it to me.
I'd love to hear about these accomplishments of yours, how you went
this
through
This was the biggest issue I ran on when I ran for Congress back in 2022. And I said I would never support a tax bill that doesn't lift the cap on salt. And so we were very clear that if we did not come to an agreement, like, I would vote no on the bill. And we were, very upfront about that. I didn't hide that. I didn't try to be coy. I was very blunt and direct, because the reality is, if you know where one of the red lines are, then you can deal with it. And so I wanted to be able to deal with leadership, to deal with the White House, to deal with the president, and get to a yes, because it mattered to my district. I represent one of the highest tax districts in the country: Rockland, Westchester, Putnam counties, 3 of the top 16 highest property tax counties in America. And so when you look at state and local taxes and your ability to deduct that on your federal income tax return, that $10,000 cap severely impacted our district. People got hurt. They had to pay more in federal income taxes than they otherwise would have. And so, we negotiated. It was hard fought. Not many of our colleagues were on board, and nobody in the Senate wanted to do this. The president wanted to do something, but he left it to us really to negotiate. But ultimately, we had to negotiate with the Treasury Secretary to get the deal across the finish line. And we were able to get a big win for New York, for my district, for high tax districts all across the country, a $40,000 SALT cap with a $500,000 income limit, 1% growth over 5 years. And we fixed within the tax bill a provision with respect to pass-through entities so that they could deduct their state and local taxes as well, which is huge for small businesses. So this was a hard-fought win. It was the single biggest tax cut in the whole bill. And 90% of my constituents will be able to fully deduct their state and local taxes, whether they itemize or, use the standard deduction, if that covers, the state and local tax burden among other tax benefits. They're going to be able to fully deduct, and that's a big win.
Thank you for that.
Huge win. Yes, thank you very much. I'm very curious how it works when someone like you wants to propose a certain bill, and now you got to get your colleagues to come on board and to sign off on it. I imagine you have to have a certain majority that votes on it in order for it to pass.
Right.
So I watched House of Cards, right? Great show. Great show. They say supposedly it's one of the more accurate depictions of what goes on behind the scenes in Washington. That's what they say.
Minus the
one or two
murdering.
things. Yes, exactly.
Yes,
I'm curious, is there a show that you enjoy that you think that...
Actually, I liked House of Cards. I liked Homeland. I love The Sopranos.
Which,
but no,
which show do you think depicts very, the most accurate to what goes on in Washington?
Well, he said The Sopranos.
In Washington, I would.
Right.
I mean, House of Cards certainly, along with Veep. I think there's some. There's
some
levels
elements.
there's elements of truth in all of them.
In all of them, yeah.
West Wing obviously was one that I think was very good about being able to accurately depict what goes on between the executive and the legislature and some of the internal fights.
Yeah.
And
So I remember in House of Cards,
all good shows.
They would basically trade favors with each other. Like, you support my bill, I'll support your bill. And, you'd pick up the phone, you'd call people, and you would have to whip up the votes, in order to get people to support you. Like, how does things like this get done?
That happens a little bit, but not. It is much more focused on the issue specific. And you got to work it. You got to build consensus. I mean, obviously, you may have a bill that is timely. So, for instance, after the second assassination attempt on President Trump's life last year, I had already introduced a bill to enhance Secret Service protection for candidates running for president. But after the second one, I was able to get my bill on the floor a week later, and it passed unanimously, and it passed the Senate unanimously, and it was signed into law all within a week.
Wow.
That happened because of a current event that helped drive the legislation. Sometimes it takes years to move a bill. You got to build consensus and
relationships.
It's
you gotta
slow,
work the phones.
slow but sure. You know, and so there's a lot of bills that I have that I think would be great pieces of legislation, but not every bill I introduce is going to move immediately. So you gotta build consensus. You gotta talk to your Democratic colleagues, get bipartisan support, which always helps move a bill on suspension, which is the fastest way to move legislation. And if you can build bipartisan cooperation, it has a much better chance of becoming law than if it's a entirely partisan bill.
Yeah.
And so that's where I really spend my time focused on introducing legislation that is bipartisan in nature, that's more likely to get broad support, that's focused on substantive, serious issues, not partisan, political issues that are really just more of a political statement than a legislative exercise. So that's where I spend a lot of my time focused on actually trying to legislate.
Maybe we can help you speed things up. Is there anything you're working on now that our listeners, we've had some politicians on our program before. What's something that you're working on now that you might think, it might take me a long time, but we can help?
Well, I've already introduced this year, I think, over 50 bills. We're working on getting Wells Crowther, the man in the red bandana, the Congressional Gold Medal. I have legislation on housing. I have a lot of foreign policy legislation. We're working through the NDAA, and I have a bunch of amendments that I've added in there that are bills that I've introduced. So we're working through a lot of different angles. I think a big part of it, again, is just it's building consensus among colleagues and support, going to leadership, advocating for them to bring the bill to the floor. And you got to remember there's 435 members. Everybody's believes their bills are the most important and the best legislation. So you in some respects, you're competing against colleagues to get legislation moved. But I think a big part of it, again, is can you build consensus? Are you building bipartisan support? Are you building public awareness and support? And so I do a lot of press around legislation that we introduce because building that awareness matters.
Yeah. Who has the record for introducing the most bills that got passed? Is there somebody like
I'm sure there's a record somewhere. I don't.
That's what Stefan is here for.
Off the top of my head.
ChatGPT checker.
Who got
Top
the
of my
most,
head.
Because that's got to be an accomplishment.
I'd be curious.
That's a big accomplishment. Because
It
it's not
is.
easy to get these things passed. And he must be a very well-liked person, I imagine, that had a lot of,
It's also, I'm
support
thinking,
on both sides of the aisle.
I'm thinking the job consists of sales, marketing,
Everything.
negotiating.
And that's part of the reason why I try to talk to everybody. I go talk to colleagues all across the aisle. We don't all agree on everything, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's why we have a constitutional republic.
Yeah.
If we all agreed on everything, then we wouldn't need a Congress. I mean, that's like, so I think we've lost perspective on this. I think as a country, like robust debate is a good thing. And we should engage in constructive dialogue and debate. Stop using names to attack, people we disagree with. Attack the idea. Go after the idea.
Yeah. Substance.
Disagree on the substance of it as opposed to just demonizing the person who's,
who doesn't share your opinion. Right. Yeah.
Senator Ted Kennedy. 300
that would
laws.
make sense.
Okay.
More than 300 laws.
A Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, both of them served,
47 years?
John Dingell, 59 years. Ted Kennedy, 47 years. I mean, to pass a lot of legislation, you obviously need.
They had longevity.
Yeah.
You mentioned 435 congressmen that are in Congress. It's a very small number in comparison to the country. You guys are the 1% of the 1%. It's a big deal to make it all the way, that far up. And I could see why. Like you could see that the individuals, like I only know you for like 15 minutes now. Just seeing you, I've seen you all over TV. Yeah. I've heard you speak many times. But I can tell you're very even-tempered. You're speaking. You don't have highs and lows. You're a worked on person, and people in this position. That's what I expect. Right. Somebody who makes it to that position, came through hard work. And then sometimes you meet, and I'm not going to say names because out of respect to what you just said, is look at the arguments and the substance, not the name calling,
Right.
But sometimes you see people and like, what? How is this? How did they get here? We have 435 people that represent our country, and this is the best America has. This is the best we could have done. How does that happen?
When I first decided to run for public office, one of the things that kind of was driving me was, if that person can get elected, I get elected.
Exactly.
And part of it was because, unfortunately, I think there are a number of people, both in Congress and in state legislatures, who are not serious about the legislating part. They're not serious about the importance of actually engaging in constructive dialogue to actually advance long-term legislation that's going to last. It is easy in this hyper-partisan era to jam through a partisan bill, especially if you control everything. But the problem is the moment the pendulum swings, the other side tries to repeal it or demagogues it. If we actually spent the time focused on where we agree and focused on how to advance critical legislation to that end, we'd be able to more substantially and more positively impact the country, the economy, national security, et cetera. So I try very hard at that because I just think long-term that is a much better way to legislate than pontificating about things that are unlikely to become law because you don't have consensus behind it. And even if you do pass a law on it, it's going to be very controversial and it's going to be hyper-partisan and it's not going to solve the problem long-term.
Yeah.
And so that's where I try to look at this from the standpoint of what type of legislator do I want to be?
Right.
What type of representative do I want to be? I get attacked constantly, every day, all day, from all sides because of the way that I choose to legislate. And, on the Democratic side, that he's not a real moderate. He's not really bipartisan. He's MAGA. They throw everything they can at you because they don't. It's political. It's not about actually doing the work. Whereas my colleagues that I deal with on the Democratic side would never say that because they understand I really do make that effort and I'm serious about it. So it's doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything. I am a Republican. I ran as a Republican for a reason. But, I do try to find area of commonality.
Yeah. Who is the one individual on the Democratic side that you really, really respect and that you say, wow, he or she, great person, somebody who's doing it right? Do you have that person?
I have a number of people that I work closely with that I respect.
Somebody in the Senate.
But
in the Senate.
In the House, my closest colleague and friend is Josh Gottheimer, a Democrat from New Jersey. We have neighboring districts, but we're very similar sense of humor.
I see that. I see it.
We like working together and finding area of agreement. We don't agree on everything, but we don't demagogue each other, and we don't take it personal that we have a difference of opinion on something. And frankly, don't waste time focusing on that. We try to find where we agree, and let's advance that legislation. But there are, in the Senate side, I've done some stuff with Chris Coons from Delaware, a Democratic senator, especially on foreign affairs. We've spent some time there. John Fetterman and I agree on a lot when it comes to Israel and
John Fetterman is a Republican policies. Wearing Democrat clothing, but he's pretty much come over to our side.
He has certainly shifted rightward on a number of fronts, and
we were against him at the beginning.
But I think it's also within the base of the Democratic Party they have gone so far to the left.
It's crazy.
I try to find area of commonality with Kirsten Gillibrand, one of my senators from New York. There's issues pertaining to child care, women's health, or other areas that we've tried to work together on, and you really, again, you try to find people who are serious about doing the work and advancing legislation, because that's why we're there. What else are you there for?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're not going to try to legislate, I don't really understand why you would serve in Congress.
Well, I understand it because I'm a shallow person, so I get it. There's a lot of glamour that comes along with this role.
It's a lot less glamorous than people realize, especially if you're in a district like mine and you're working 7 days a week.
But there is a little bit of notoriety that comes along with this.
Sure.
And that's probably one of the reasons that some people have ulterior motives to get into this position of power. You know, look, you're doing things for the right reasons, and there are others like you out there that are representing us well.
A lot of my colleagues are very serious about this. They want to legislate. They want to find area of commonality. They're not interested in the daily back and forth. Yeah, there's going to be some sharp differences. Yes, there's going to be sharp words used at times. Yes, there's going to be real, political disagreements and legislative fights. But it's not personal. Too many of my colleagues take it way too personal.
Yeah.
And they drive other people, Americans, voters, to take it so personal. And when you see what just happened with Charlie Kirk, when you see, the 2 Minnesota lawmakers getting shot, this is not how our politics should be conducted. It is not how we should be legislating. It's not how we should be engaging in discourse. And certainly violence is not an answer to a political or legislative disagreement. Duke it out at the ballot box.
Yeah.
Let the voters decide and respect what the voters decide.
I think a majority of Americans really have all agreed at this point that what happened in the wake of Charlie Kirk's tragedy, his tragic death, I think that we all can agree that we need to tone down the rhetoric, and political violence is never even remotely close to being the answer. But you know what I was very disappointed about that happened last night? Really disappointed. I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed. So last night was the Emmy Awards. I don't know if you watch any of these shows. Most people tuned out of Hollywood a long time ago, but I'm still watching it. I like watching the Oscars, and the Grammys and MTV and all of that. So I didn't even know last night was the Emmy Awards. I had no idea because you know what? I'm actually kind of distracted. Like there's real things going on in the world right now that I literally did not know. And I'm scrolling through my phone. And what? The Emmys was last night? Interesting. I'll watch some highlights. Let me see who won. And I'm going through it, and not a mention, not a word of what just happened that just rocked the entire country. Yeah. I mean, this is the biggest news going on in the world, not just in our country, all over. Everybody's talking about it. And Hollywood, which has a major platform, and where a lot of other people, unfortunately, get their news from, that's who they emulate, and those are their heroes. And they're listening very carefully to what those people are saying, so they have a responsibility to say the right things, which unfortunately, we know most of Hollywood is gutless and spineless and very self-serving. Mm-hmm. And that's the worst of what the liberalism has to offer, the progressive has to offer. I'm not saying that all of liberalism is bad. Right. They're probably the worst parts of it, not all of Hollywood, a big chunk of Hollywood. Not one mention. It really pained me because that was a great opportunity to stand up and to tell people what just happened was not okay.
Well,
and by being silent is almost being complicit.
I think everyone, elected officials, the media, celebrities, everybody has to reflect on how they are conducting their own behavior. It's very easy to point the finger at somebody else, but the old adage goes, when you're pointing the finger, there's 3 pointing right back at you.
That's so true.
And I think that's
a good line.
There's got to be a recognition that we all have a responsibility. And I think what's unfortunate about it is that could have been an opportunity. They could say how most of them there, I'm sure, disagree with the things he fought for, the beliefs that he had, and that's fine. But the importance of the dialogue, because as Charlie Kirk said many times, when we stop dialoguing, that's when violence happens. And I think the objective should be to have a much more honest and thoughtful and constructive dialogue between Americans. Because at the end of the day, we're all Americans. And too many people have put on their red or blue jersey and fail to recognize that we're actually all in a red, white, and blue jersey. Yeah. And that is really where our politics has gotten so coarse, so corrosive. The vitriol that is spewed, the dehumanization of those we disagree with, fascist, racist, bigoted, xenophobic, homophobic, all the terms that just constantly get thrown out, no matter what the conversation is, rather than actually drilling down on the substance of the disagreement, or again, trying to find an area of agreement, which I think is way more important. We spend way too much time focused on where we disagree. And that is the basis of the conversation, as opposed to, hey, this is what we're focused on. This is where we can actually get stuff done.
Yeah. But do you agree that Hollywood should have said something?
They missed an opportunity.
Missed the mark?
And it's just, it is emblematic, obviously, of the viewpoint that is often pushed out of Hollywood or on television without recognizing, you know what, we have a role to play in this too, and we should try to
they have a voice.
They should try to uplift the dialogue.
They should try to uplift the dialogue. Exactly. The NFL did a pretty good job at it. Most of the teams, not all the teams.
Yeah. But you know what? I think that's a positive thing. And again, I'd rather focus on the fact that many of the teams did, and that was great.
Yes.
Versus the ones that didn't.
That's why I didn't point out the NFL, because there were a lot of teams that did. I'm not going to focus on the couple of teams that didn't. Doesn't matter. But, you know, for the most part, they got it right. But Hollywood spitefully didn't do it.
Yeah.
They
but I think
what
was most interesting was the reaction by the American public. Most Americans took this as an opportunity to pray, to be together, to join in peaceful solidarity. They weren't burning down the streets. They weren't looting businesses. They weren't committing violence against other Americans in response. That is a positive step forward, and I think we need to continue that.
Charlie Kirk would be proud. He would be very proud seeing how you know we're coming together, and his message is actually being magnified right now. I think he would be very, very proud. I'm very curious about Mike. I'm sorry. Go. I tend sometimes to.
No. I'm loving it. Are you kidding me?
By the way, this is my
Emmys.
This is a big deal. I don't get to sit with a U.S. congressman every single day. Like
I'm actually just curious.
I'm following you wherever you're going from here. Where's he going next?
We got some meetings, and then I got to fly to D.C.
You're going back to Washington.
Yeah.
What's that like? What is it like going to Washington, into the White House? Your first time going into the White House. What was that experience like?
Ushy, I swear that was my question.
That was your next question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was curious, like, you know, when you,
most of us never ever get to experience
expecting
that.
it, you know it's coming, but then you get there, you close the doors, and you're like, hey guys, I made it.
Well,
like, what's going on?
So I've been to the White House itself.
No, as an employee of the White House.
Multiple times. Well, I've not been an employee of the White House, but I've gone to the White House, you know, a number of times for events and in prior administration. But obviously, going into the Oval Office the first time is pretty awe-inspiring. It's you're pretty amazed by the you know, the fact that you have the opportunity to walk in there and talk to the President of the United States, and obviously so many important decisions are made behind the Resolute desk, and just the awesome responsibility that comes with this job, comes with being a member of Congress. As you pointed out, you're only one of 435. In the history of the country, there's less than 12,000 people who have ever served in the United States House of Representatives. So
that's an interesting way to look at
it. It really is, you know, you have a lot of weight on your shoulders when you're dealing with these issues. But to be able to walk into the White House, to be able to serve in the Capitol where so much history has happened, it really is an awesome responsibility. I love it every day. I don't get tired of it. I'm not jaded by it. It's you know, if you don't look at the beauty, the majesty of where you work, or the fact that you get to engage on these issues, that you get to vote on them, you know, it really is inspiring.
I have to say, sitting here speaking to you, there's so much that is clear to us. You know, your demeanor, your values, and it speaks volumes of who you are as a person. I'm curious to go back to where that was. What camps did you go to? What schools did you go to? Did you have a job? What did you work as?
That stems from my parents.
So where were they from? Like,
where were you born?
Rockland County, born and raised. My family, you know, in one form or fashion, has been in Rockland over 100 years. You know, my mom's Italian, my dad was Irish. You know, my parents taught us good values and work ethic at a very young age. And always impressed upon me, the belief that to whom much is given, much is required, and that I've been given a lot of skills and talents from God, and to use them to do God's work and keep my moral compass about me. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. Doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. I do, but I carried that with me. Those are the last words my dad said to me when he died back in 2013. And it's something that they impressed upon me throughout my childhood. And, I obviously, there's so many things in my life that have kind of shaped my worldview or who I am. But, obviously 9/11 was a big inflection point, living in New York and being a freshman in high school that day. And obviously, shaped my high school years and my college years. Became an intern for McCain while I was in college. That another inflection point in my life, and certainly kind of changed my trajectory of where I was going. I went to school for accounting and finance, and I was planning on going to law school, and kind of totally shifted course, and was extremely passionate about it. And and then when my dad died, I was 26, and so that certainly had an impact on my life and my view of things, and what's important, what's not. Obviously, as I've worked my way up in politics and government, I've generally been of the mindset, you have to be willing to take risk, and you have to put yourself out there, and ultimately the people will decide. And I think it's the old Wayne Gretzky adage, you never miss any of the shots you don't take. So you got to be willing to take the shot, and you may miss or you may score. But to me, it's not about winning and losing. It's very much about the ability to serve, and I've loved every minute of it, and doing the job. And the team that we have that works tirelessly on my behalf and on behalf of the constituents, that's what matters. Doing the work, and ultimately you leave it to God. It'll be what it'll be. And if I continue to serve in this capacity, great. And if in the future somebody else does, and I'm no longer in office, that's great too. I mean, that to me, it's not about me. It's about the people that we're elected to serve, and I'll keep doing the job for as long as people will have me.
Wow.
For the record, Michael, him and I are the same age. I mean, do you see a difference? Like, it's crazy. It's just, you're very young.
You got a little bit more gray.
I got a lot more gray. Yeah, yeah. And you seem to have it together in the way you talk. I mean, you're a true politician. You're worked on. You're a professional. That's why I say politicians encompass a lot of different traits and a lot of different. They'd make great businessmen. They really would, because they have they're people. They're salespeople. There's market. There's everything all infused into one, and it's really amazing. What's the next shot you're going to be taking? Like Wayne Gretzky. What's the next big shot that you're going to be taking one day?
Well, right now I'm running for re-election, and as I said, this is something I love doing. I think it's a tremendous opportunity to serve. I love the issues that we deal with on a daily basis, and I know how important my district is to control of Congress and advancing forward, key priorities. So right now, that's the focus. Whatever the future holds, whether it's governor, whether it's Senate, something else, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't get too caught up in that. My general view is, certainly God has a plan, but moreover, you look at the opportunities as they come, and you make a determination, and whatever the determination is, I'm fine with.
I love the attitude. I love also the concept of just looking at all the positive and talking about that. It's so many great messages we could take out of this discussion. And there's a few things that we like to wrap up with before we finish up. One of those things are, and I think this time it will make a bigger difference than usual because we're voters, constituents. Do you have any questions for us?
I would say, what is your biggest concern right now? What is the issue or issues that's kind of keeping you guys up at night, whether it's the economy, whether it's obviously the situation in the Middle East, anti-Semitism, what's driving your concerns?
I would say my concern is the hate. I'm scared sometimes of thinking about what's going on. And I think someone like you in your position can do a lot in terms of bringing them all together. And when I say them, I mean all races, all religions, all people. And living in Rockland County, growing up in Brooklyn, I'm very aware of the idea of getting along together with all different people. And that's what I would be curious about. Like, how can we do more to bridge that gap between all of us living together? You have so many people that want more housing. Yeah, I'm living in a neighborhood where you want sidewalks because you want safety for children, but then you don't want sidewalks because then you turn it into Brooklyn, New York. So I'm curious, how does someone in your position go about bringing that all together?
I think the number one thing for me is that I talk to everybody. I engage everybody. I don't, I don't leave any community out. I continue to dialogue even with people who don't like me or attack me on a daily basis, because I think it's important. Obviously we're not going to agree on everything, and there are some real differences, and even in local politics about land use decisions, and development, and there's some legitimate concerns and discussions to be had. But I think the moment it turns to attacks on people because of who they are or what they believe or how they practice their faith, I think that's where it goes off kilter. And so I've made a very conscious effort, especially within Rockland and in the Orthodox and Hasidic communities, of being present, of showing up, of engaging and posting about it and letting people see, like, yeah, I do engage there. Because you know what, we're all in one community, and there may be areas of disagreement or difference, but you know what, rather than just attack each other on social media or say things, go engage, go have a dialogue, go have a conversation, let people know, you know what, look, we understand you need more housing, but here's why we have concern. Have an actual discussion as opposed to the vitriol that just gets spewed, and that's been my objective, my modus operandi, is to show up, to engage, to have conversation. Doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything, but I'm always willing to say where I stand and why.
I feel like I should have asked the question a little differently. What can I do? What can we do as a community to really, because other than showing up to court, when someone's applying for a zoning
I think
change,
a big part of it, honestly, is there's got to be greater dialogue. There's got to be greater dialogue between people in the community and not in the community, and especially showing up at community events, public events throughout the whole county, and really engaging in a more constructive dialogue, I think is good for everybody. And it shows people like, we all want to live together. We all want to live amongst each other. We're not looking to be in our own little bubble, but there's going to be some differences, but let's try to find commonality.
A lot of the legacy media stokes a lot of this fear because they're spreading a lot of this information. And you think the worst of the worst is out there and someone's coming to get you and you're always looking over your shoulder because of what they're putting out there. We don't hear enough the good things. Yeah, I've said this last time also, Michael. We don't hear enough about the beautiful parts of each of our cultures, of Christians, of Jewish people, of Muslims. We don't hear enough about that. We're not educated enough. We're not teaching the children of all the beautiful good things about it, and they're just seeing all the hate. They're seeing all the bad stuff. They're seeing the bad apples. They're seeing the people that are doing violent things, terrible things. And you know what, Michael? It's very unfortunate, but I'm not kidding you. I went to Dunkin' Donuts this morning. I promise this happened to me. I went to Dunkin' Donuts this morning, and somebody walked in, and I don't know, to me it looked a little suspect, and I was like, while I'm talking to the person next to me, I'm just like keeping on the corner. I'm like, I'm wearing a yarmulke, and I'm nervous. Is this person like? I never used to live that way, but because of what's going on, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, I might be delusional. You know what? It was silly what I was doing. I really shouldn't think that way.
No,
but because of what's around me, we got to spread more positivity. We got to put more resources, just like for every bad story we post on Fox News or on CNN or whatever, let's do a good story also. Let's show some helping hand that somebody did, some inter-community event that's going. Why can't we do more of that?
Agree. Look, I think unfortunately you're not being delusional. You got to be cognizant. I mean, unfortunately, we've seen obviously an uptick in anti-Semitic hate crimes, but moreover, look, it's something that I'm way more cognizant about this Congress than I was last Congress. I wasn't as concerned about my safety or my family's safety or my staff's safety last Congress. I am this because the vitriol, the hatred, the anger, the just
leveled up
rhetoric that has been spewed, and the violence that we're seeing. It's unconscionable, and obviously it creates such strain within society and in our country. And again, it's easy to point the finger. I think everybody's got to take a little bit of a introspective look here and say, what can I do better?
Yeah.
How can I uplift the dialogue? How can we, as you're saying, in the media, how do we highlight positive stories? Yes, we got to show the negative in terms of what's going on or somebody, hurt or an incident, but how do we uplift? Because there's so much more positive in our community, in our society, in our country. We live in the greatest country in the world, and the American people are the most generous people in the world. And there's so much good going on, and the question is, where do we focus our effort and our time and our energy? Do we focus on the negative and the area of disagreement or difference, or do we focus on the positive and the area of commonality and agreement?
Yeah, we definitely like bringing people on that talk about positivity and growth, and both personally and professionally. And it was an honor having you here today. And we really, really appreciate it. Is there anyone that you can recommend that would fill that seat as a guest on our podcast that can help in our mission?
I think you'd love to talk to Josh Gottheimer. He'd be a good.
He'd be awesome.
A good representative to talk to. Richie Torres would be another.
Richie, a staunch supporter of Israel also. And, he posts about it unabashedly, and he gets a little bit of hate from his side. Why are you always so busy with Israel? What about over here at home? And he doesn't care, and he's still out there.
He's got a great story, So, those would be two
amazing.
Two
if
good
you don't
members.
mind asking them for,
Sure.
we're not going to put
Richie Torres.
We're not going to put you on the spot like we normally do because we respect your time and privacy. But if you can ask them to join us, that would be great. Thank you to all of our listeners, our subscribers, the Prime Source production team, to Twillery, our sponsor. You ever heard of Twillery, by the way? Okay, good. Because
look how popular they're becoming. The congressman knows what Twillery is. What is this?
I feel
Do you
like
have anything from Twillery?
No, I don't.
We're gonna ask Twillery to ship out something.
You know what? Yeah, I think we're gonna get you a shirt. Just
You
to
gotta
try.
try.
You're gonna enjoy
Their
it.
stuff is really, really nice,
And it saves you on dry cleaning.
Yeah.
which apparently is
Yeah.
bills that keep going up. So. But we appreciate you being here,
you.
really. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to all of our listeners, and thank you very much for being here.
Happy and blessed Rosh Hashanah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well. It's a wrap.
And that's a wrap.